It's a new year, some things haven't changed and others have.
A new year for everyone, but for certain people, it's an athletic step with a college scholarship on the line.
Hi, I'm Tom Morrow.
And I'm Lily Epez.
We continue to see high school sports take a huge hit. Recently on the last Sports Talk, we mentioned the loss of winter sports championships. News hit the air on January 25th that Long Island will resume sports as of February 1st. After a few snow days, teams have started practicing and games are set to return on Wednesday, February 10th.
Sean McQuillan has the latest on the return to sports and what's the new start for high school sports and high school athletes.
I'm here at the B&B Sports Center, and thanks, Tom. Yes, people are excited about the return to sports, but there are lots of questions going around. Practices for basketball, wrestling, kickline, and cheer began this week, but with gym space limited by COVID restrictions and the North Gym being dedicated as a cafeteria, practices have been running late into the night. The last practice slot ends each night at 9:40. As we talked about yesterday in the morning announcements, this week's snow days have also played havoc with the schedule, as all teams are required to have 6 practices prior to season play. So the first games have been pushed back to Wednesday, with the basketball teams taking on Garden City, and with wrestling getting started on Saturday the 13th against Division. To keep athletes and spectators safe, and coaches, the district has put into place a lot of restrictions and precautions. Athletes will be tested once per week, and a positive test will result in quarantines possibly for the entire team, depending on contract tracing. Spectators in gyms will be limited to 2 per athlete. Masks, however, at this point will be optional during gameplay. That said, East Meadow is one of several Nassau County schools that is going to mandate masks during play. So, what happens when an optional mask team like the Pirates takes on a mandatory mask team? Interestingly, it looks like it will be a forfeit for the mandatory team. That said, what's the value of a win by forfeit in an 8-game season with no playoffs? That's a question I am sure we'll be answering at some point in the next 2 weeks. Now back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Sean, for the update. It's very hard for athletes right now. Some athletes have not played a real game in over a year. The return of high school sports would be a huge return to the sports world.
What you just said, Lily, is 100% correct. It's hard to imagine people not being able to play in over a year. I know people, you probably know people that are 3-sport athletes, and COVID-19 has played a huge, significant impact in that.
Last episode, we touched on the recruiting process during COVID-19, but have you ever wondered what it's like from the athlete's perspective?
That's right, Lily. You sat down with 2 committed athletes in college who went through the recruiting process during COVID-19.
As we continue to hear about those suspensions and cancellations today, even more as the sports world rocked by the coronavirus, the NCAA canceling the March Madness tournament.
Other professional and high school sports organizations making unprecedented announcements as well.
1 year ago, the world was introduced to COVID-19. When athletes first got news last spring that their season was canceled, it was devastating and hard to recover.
It was obviously heartbreaking because we had a really good team, as you know, you're on the team, but we had a lot of good guys, so it was probably their last run, and I was really close with a lot of the older guys, so obviously them not having a season led to just everything just shutting down. And then I had thought of it obviously on the recruiting side as well, because you had a lot of schools in the area, in the state as well, that were calling Coach Passman, and not being able to have a season they weren't able to watch. I didn't have any stats, so it really pretty much just came down to summer ball.
All the work that I put in the fall and in the winter, getting ready for the spring season, was just kind of shut down. All the hours in the gym and on the field, but it was kind of for nothing during that spring season, just to get better. And having nothing to compete with in the spring was definitely a heartbreaker, especially going into my senior year. And that was definitely the biggest time to get recruited for college. And luckily, everything ended up working out in the long run. I got to commit to a D1 school.
11 months later, the coronavirus still continues to take a huge blow on sports. Both Kender and Hislop are committed athletes. They've made something out of nothing during COVID-19.
For me, obviously, there hasn't been team sports, but it doesn't mean I get to take a break. I've been going to the gym a lot every day, working out, trying to just stay in shape. And then obviously hitting wise, it takes a lot because you don't want to get rusty. So I've been hitting probably 3 times a day, and my job is at my baseball facility, so I'm there all the time, trying to make some money for college and just staying on top of my game.
everything canceled in the spring, I was working out in my garage, just working out, getting ready for the fall, and then finding out that was canceled was just another heartbreaker. And with the news coming on in the spring, hopefully that we get to play soccer. It's going to be my first year playing for Mepham, so I'm really excited to hopefully lead Mepham to a county championship.
While doing all of this, there's people seeing the success and seeing how much work these athletes are putting in despite the challenges faced by COVID-19.
It's been pretty sport specific. Some sports it's easier than others. Track, for example, as long as we have access to the track, we can still do all our sprints. We can still do our drills. We can use the bleachers for different types of exercises. For the shot putters, where they have to physically use materials, we use wipes. We wipe down every shot put before use. We will use one shot put per student so that they're not sharing anything. We've even been able to do some lifting outside, not in the weight room, but again, maintaining distance, using wipes and masks all the time. It's been a different type of workout, but it's still possible to get the kids training and doing the things that they're used to.
As being a committed athlete during these times, positivity lies ahead to others who are not yet committed or going through the process.
You just got to keep being you got to keep trying, keep practicing, and you just got to reach out to coaches because they're not going to be able to reach out to you due to the dead period. So if you just stay on that and you kind of have to bother the coaches, but you'll find a good spot, especially if you just keep doing your research and trying, practicing, staying on everything.
But you just got to keep your head high. Just believe in yourself. I believed in myself from the beginning. I knew I was going to be a D1 athlete. If you think you can be a D1 athlete, you can be a D1 athlete. Just put your mind to it and then go get it.
For B&B, I'm Lily Yepes.
Going back to what Tom said in the beginning, it's a new year and some things haven't changed, and others have. One thing that hasn't changed is the loss of the winter sports. The annual Spring Gardener Tournament that we cover here at B&B was a big loss for the wrestlers, and just the Winter Sports Championship was an even bigger loss.
100% Lily. I sat down with Mepham graduate and filmmaker Alexander Pekoff to discuss his journey from the wrestling mats at Mepham High School to now a career in filmmaking.
Just know that high school is not the end of the journey.
Alexander Pekoff was a wrestler here at Mepham High School. He decided to take his path straight into filmmaking.
I graduated and I wanted to get into film. That was my goal. And I reconnected with my private wrestling coach that coached me from 7th grade to 12th grade. And he has a club here in Hauppauge. And we decided to collaborate and make a reality TV show about youth wrestling.
Documentary?
I think that until it's a successful thing, then reality TV show sounds way better. Once it's a success.
I think reality TV is the best.
Really? It depends what you don't know what age you're talking to. Yeah. Older people want to hear documentary. Yeah. Younger people, reality TV.
And now we have a group of, I'd say, about 12 wrestlers we're really focusing on, aged 5 through 12 years old. And we're documenting their journeys from now until hopefully college to see, what training philosophies work, what training philosophies end up burning the kids out, and just making fun content.
Pekoff, once a wrestler, now showing people how to do it. Pekoff recently launched the YouTube series called The Grind.
So it was the coach here at Team Dynamic in Hauppauge. It was his idea he's wanted to do a show about his wrestlers for a while because wrestling's a really intense sport. There's a lot of emotion involved, and these kids are training like professional athletes with the amount of time they dedicate to wrestling, the amount of money they spend. They're just training super hard, and so much goes into it. So he thought it would be a great idea to do a show about it. But the problem was he never really knew a filmmaker with a wrestling background. And then when we reconnected after I graduated college, he proposed the idea to me of bringing me on and having me produce the show. And that's what kind of launched it. So we've been doing it for about 10 months now.
It's not easy times that we're going through. COVID-19 has left restrictions on many things. New York State has canceled the Winter Sports Championships. For wrestlers and coaches, it's heartbreaking news.
I can't imagine being a senior in high school and having your season stripped away from you. It's heartbreaking for those young athletes.
It's a big part of the season, so for a lot of people it's their end goal to win the MVP at the end of the season. tough for some of the wrestlers to have to deal with that.
It's truly heartbreaking for the seniors who this is their last chance to be able to win the state championship or at least place All-State. But I hope for the future that next year everything will be back to normal and everyone can go compete at states once again.
For BNB, I'm Tom Morrow.
Well, as we know, high school sports are on pause, but one thing that isn't is the NFL.
The NFL dealt with ups and downs with COVID-19, but plowed right through them, implementing all the safety precautions needed. Upcoming is one of the most exciting and enjoyable Sundays of the year. That's Super Bowl Sunday. If you don't watch football, it's probably the only time you do.
We didn't forget about you, Matt. Don't worry. Take it away with your minute.
I'm Matt Manno, back with the Fast Minute in Sports, and not Manno on the street. We got snowed out. I just saw the clock already. I know you've all been dying to hear my Super Bowl 55 predictions, so I'm here to deliver, just not in the way you'd think. I'm already on record saying that Kansas City will win the game, so I'm here to predict some of the smaller parts of the spectacle. It is Super Bowl prop bet time. No, do not gamble. Before the game starts, we have the national anthem, which will last less than 2 minutes. Trust me. The game then starts with a coin toss, and I think Kansas City calls tails, wins, and takes the ball and takes it right down the field, capping it off with a Patrick Mahomes rushing touchdown. One of the biggest stories of this game is Tom Brady making it to the big dance a year after breaking up with Coach Bill Belichick. The broadcast booth will let us Pats fans hear it too, with over 2 times Coach Bill will be mentioned. And let's not forget the people who watch for the commercials. This one's easy. At least 5 commercials with the dog, another 3 mentioning the pandemic, and at least 1 rerun of the Patrick Mahomes State Farm commercial. And at the end of the game, the winning coach, Andy Reid, is bathed in Gatorade by his team, which I predict will be orange. I have this down to a science. When New England won their Super Bowls, almost all of the Gatorade passed them blue, and when Kansas City won last year, it was orange. Need I say more? My last piece of advice is to keep the Manno curse in mind. Your wallet will thank you. That's all from me. Go Pats. Now back to you in the studio.
That will just about wrap things up for the 4th episode of Season 4 here on Sports Talk. Make sure to follow our social media for the latest updates and much more. For Matt Manno, I'm Lily Epez.
And I'm Tom Morrow. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.